Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're doing our last lesson on human responses to the environment, focusing on reflex arc. I will show you what a reflex arc looks like and I will give you a summary of reflex action. We'll be doing labeling and giving functions. I will show you the neurons one by one and we'll be labeling them. Lastly, we will answer some of the exam questions under this topic. Please subscribe and like for the YouTube algorithm, it will help me a lot. This is what a reflex arc looks like. It has the sensory neuron, connector neuron, and motor neuron. Neurons are responsible for receiving sensory input from the external world, for sending motor commands to our muscles, and for transforming and relaying the electrical signals at every step in between. We have what we call a reflex action. This is automatic response to stimulus. Stimulus, we're talking about heat, it can be a pin, etc. When you get burned on your finger, for an example, you will quickly remove that hand from the heat, and that is reflex action. You are responding without your brain being involved. Now let's look at the summary of reflex action. The receptor in the skin detects a stimulus, which could be a heat or could be a pin, whatever. The sensory neuron sends electrical impulses to a connector neuron, which is located in the spinal cord of the central nervous system. The connector neuron sends the impulses to the motor neuron, and the motor neuron sends the electrical impulses to the effector. Effector produces a response. An effector is the muscles, right? So now let's label a reflex arc. We have the stimulus here is a pin, and then we have the pain receptors in the skin. Just before the sensory neuron, we have dorsal root. We have the sensory neuron here, which is responsible for transmitting the impulses from the receptors to the relay neuron or the connector neuron. And then we have the connector neuron here, which is responsible for transmitting the impulses from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. And then we have the motor neuron here, which is responsible for transmitting impulses from the connector neuron to the muscles. And then just after the motor neuron, we have what we call a ventral root. And then we have the muscles here, muscle fibers, which is the effector. And then now here, this is the spinal cord. And then we have a hole here in between, which is central canal. And then just inside here, we have what we call gray matter. And outside here, we have what we call white matter. Now let's look at the neurons one by one. We have what we call a sensory neuron. A sensory neuron, how will you be able to see a sensory neuron? It has a cell body in the middle of the neuron. And this is the direction of the impulses. They move from the dendrites, right, to the axon terminals. We have the dendrites here, and then we have the dendrite. We have nucleus, we have the cell body, we have axon, we have the myelin sheath, and then the axon terminals, right? So let's look at the functions of these parts. We have myelin sheath, which is responsible for insulating the axon and to increase the speed of electrical signal conduction. Now, if your myelin sheath is damaged, you will have what we call a multiple sclerosis. The axon transmits information away from the cell body. Dendrite transmit the information or the impulses to the cell body. We have what we call synapse, a gap between the neurons, a gap across which impulses pass by diffusion of a neurotransmitter. Now let's look at the next neuron. We have the connector neuron or the relay neuron. This one only has a cell body. And then we have the dendrites here, the dendron and cytoplasm, cell body, and the nucleus. Let's look at the motor neuron. The motor neuron, we have the cell body at the head of the neuron. Now the impulses move from this side to that side, right? Because this is the axon, remember it moves the impulses away from the cell body. So the direction of the impulses is from this side to this side. So we have the nucleus here, we have the cell body, dendrite, axon here, we have the myelin sheath, nodes of Ranvier, we have axon terminals. Now we have three people here. The first person can feel the sensation but cannot respond. Assuming that all of them, let's say they put their hands on the fire. The first one can feel the sensation but cannot respond. What is happening to that person? It means that the motor neuron of that person is not working or something. Because the person can feel the sensation but they cannot respond because the sensation cannot reach the effector, right? The second person cannot feel the sensation and at the same time they cannot respond. What does it mean? The sensory neuron is not working, because if the sensory neuron is not working, how can the impulses reach the motor neuron? So the last person can feel the sensation and can also respond. It means that the sensory neuron of that person is working as well as the motor neuron. And then we said that the myelin sheath insulate axons to increase the speed of electrical signal conduction, right? So a neuron without myelin sheath will not have faster transmission of impulses, right? Now let's look at how they phrase questions under this topic. The first question says, the diagram below represents a type of a neuron found in a human body. What type of a neuron is this one? The first question, identify the type of neuron shown. This is a motor neuron because it has the cell body at the head of the neuron. Using the letters A, B, C only, give the correct sequence of the transmission of impulse along neuron 1. We talked about this. We said that in this neuron, the impulses will move from C to B and then to A. So the answer is C, B, A, right? Explain how the speed of transmission impulses will differ for neuron 1 and neuron 2. Neuron 1 has a myelin sheath, which means that there will be faster transmission of impulses, and the second neuron does not have a myelin sheath, which means there will be a slow transmission of impulses. Explain why a person will feel the stimulus but will not be able to respond if only this type of the neuron is damaged. The person will feel the sensation, right, because the sensory neuron is working, but will not be able to respond because if the motor neuron is not working or is damaged, the neurons will not, the impulses will not reach the effector, hence the person cannot respond. The next question says that the diagram below shows different neurons. We have neuron 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you look at neuron 1 and 4, those are sensory neurons because the cell body is between the neuron. And then number 2 and 3, those are motor neurons because their cell body are at the head of the neurons. The first question says give only the number 1, 2, 3, 4 of two neurons that transport impulses from the receptor to the central nervous system. Transport the impulses from the receptor to the central nervous system, that is sensory neuron, and then your answer will be 1 and 4. Number 1.5.2, give only the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 of neurons that will have faster transmission of impulses. We talked about the myelin sheath, which enable faster transmission of impulses. So your answer would be 1 and 3 because they have myelin sheath. 2 and 4 will not have faster transmission of impulses because they don't have myelin sheath. Number 5, 1.5.3, give only the numbers 1, 2, 3, or 4 of neurons that are damaged if person can feel the stimulus but is unable to react. We talked about this as well, that if your motor neuron is damaged, you will feel the sensation but you will not be able to react. So the answer is 2 and 3, because 2 and 3, they are motor neurons. Right. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like for the YouTube algorithm. It will help me a lot. Thank you.